most welcome to Historiespanarna, History Reconnaissance. Join us on board the US Navy light cruiser Marblehead on an Asian tour in the 1930s. Watch the court of Neptune Rex in session on the main deck. Get acquainted with the Pollywogs and Shellbacks. And stay with us until the end of the video to learn about the connection between USS Marblehead and George Washington crossing the Delaware. USS Marblehead was the third of three vessels named after the New England town in Essex County, Massachusetts. USS Marblehead was an Omaha-class light cruiser, launched and commissioned in 1923. Then followed a shakedown in the English Channel and the Mediterranean. Then, in 1925, on to Australia and the Pacific. And, before we continue, please subscribe to our channel and get notified of upcoming videos. We would really appreciate having you on board on our historical journey. The two first missions were to Nicaragua in 1927 and 1928, peacekeeping and to support the elections. After that, on to the Far East, to Shanghai in China as a show of force during the Chinese Civil War, and visiting several ports in Japan. In the 1930s, USS Marblehead operated both with the Atlantic and Pacific fleets. Here in dry dock for an overhaul in 1932. Pre-war scenes in this video from an Asia-Pacific tour with USS Marblehead are from a film made by Captain Bartlett, US Navy. This image shows three-generation US Navy Bartletts outside their family home in Annapolis, Maryland in June 1922. Left to right, Captain Frank W. Bartlett, retired. Lieutenant Commander Owen Bartlett, U.S. Navy, and Ensign Bradford Bartlett, who served as gunnery officer on the staff of Commander Asiatic Fleet aboard the flagship USS Marblehead until April 1939. From 1928 on, Marblehead operated with both the Atlantic and Pacific fleets. In 1938, she was permanently assigned to the Pacific Fleet, with Cavite in the Philippines as home port. Now, let's cross the equator, a time-honored tradition in the US Navy, where sailors that still has not passed the line are referred to as Pollywogs, and they have quite an ordeal ahead of them before being promoted and declared a shellback. King Neptune and his royal courts arrive on the ship the evening prior to the equator crossing. The court of Neptune Rex consists of his queen, Davy Jones, the royal baby, and other dignitaries. The Pollywogs must entertain the royal court with a talent show, dancing, and song could be a part of it. After the evening show, Pollywogs receives a subpoena from Davy Jones to stand before the court the next day and answer to the charges brought against them by the trusty Shellbacks. After a salty and very spicy breakfast, a lot of activities has to be performed. Next, the Pollywogs kneel before the king and perhaps kiss the royal baby's belly. Lastly, the Pollywogs take a royal bath full of seawater before being declared shellbacks. USS Marblehead, War Diary, November 24th, 1941. The Commander-in-Chief, U.S. Asiatic Fleet, sensed that the relations between the United States and Japan had reached such a critical state that the movement of men of war was indicated. Next day, Marblehead with Task Force 5 departed Manila Bay for seemingly routine weekly operations. She anchored at Tarakan, Borneo on November 29th and waited for further instruction. On December 8th, that's December 7th in the United States, she received the message: Japan started hostilities. Govern yourselves accordingly. Marblehead and other American warships then joined with those of the Royal Netherlands Navy and the Royal Australian Navy to patrol and to screen Allied shipping moving south from the Philippines. On the night of January 24, 1942, Marblehead covered the withdrawal of a force of Dutch and American warships after they had attacked with devastating effect an enemy convoy off Balikpapan. 6 days later, the force departed to intercept an enemy convoy concentration at Kandari. The Japanese convoy, however, sailed soon after, and the Allied force changed course, anchoring in Bonderoods on February 2nd. On February 4th, they headed for another Japanese convoy sighted at the southern entrance to the Makassar Straits. At 09:49, 36 enemy bombers were sighted, closing in on the formation from the east. In the ensuing Battle of Makassar Straits, Marblehead successfully maneuvered through 3 attacks. Then, a fourth wave of 7 bombers released bombs at Marblehead. 2 were direct hits, and a third a near miss, close aboard the port bow, causing severe underwater damage. Fire swept the ship as she listed to starboard. Her gunners kept firing, while damage control crews fought the fires and helped the wounded. By 1100 hours, the fires were under control. Before noon, the enemy planes departed, leaving the damaged cruiser with 15 dead or mortally wounded and 84 seriously injured. October 1942, the rebuilt Marblehead put to sea and operated in the South Atlantic until February 1944. Then to the convoy lines of the North Atlantic for the next 5 months. Next to the Mediterranean for Operation Dragoon, the invasion of southern France. Decommissioned and struck from the Naval Vessel Register in November 1945. Her hull scrapped on 27 February 1946. So, finally, what is the connection between USS Marblehead and George Washington crossing the Delaware? Well, on the night of December 25th, 1776, a large number of Durham boats were used to transport the soldiers across the river. These boats were operated by experienced watermen. Most prominent among them were the men of young Glover's Marblehead Regiment, a company of experienced seamen from Marblehead, Massachusetts.
That's all, folks. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.